So good evening to all our mentorship traders. We are towards the end of October 20. Tonight, 30th of October 2020. It's a Friday evening, 9 p.m. our usual end of the week interaction. Let's talk about the markets, few sectors like we always do. Then we'll take up your doubts and trades. I have the Nifty daily chart in front of me. I'm using here the TradingView platform. The weekly chart remains more or less as it is. It's slowing down. Can be to some extent clear from these negative divergences on the momentum index. But apart from that, I think more information comes from the daily and the 75-minute time frame of the Nifty. So the seriousness of the resistance from multiple time frames proves itself pretty well. Though we were anticipating that maybe the index will take out this ascending triangle on the upside and give us a breakout above 12K, that actually never happened. It broke down below the channel as well as the triangle, and it has now clearly tested the first zone of support. These were all marked the previous week and before. So we have slipped into a downtrend. The desire to take out the 12K with the help of that pattern breakout, ascending triangle breakout, didn't happen. It broke down. The trend did not continue, and now we are in a short-term downtrend. Will it slip further down, or should we see a bounce back? This chart should give us a little more clarity. I spoke about two breakdowns simultaneously. One breakdown was from this rising blue channel over here, and exactly at that juncture there was a breakdown from this ascending triangle marked in red. The first zone of support which the index has already tested is close to that 11,600, 650, which I have marked in respect to the previous swing highs, this one. And if I look at the length of the channel, the height of the channel, and I subtract it from the breakdown point, then 11,400, 450 is the level that's the channel breakdown is suggesting on a conservative note. Yes, we are in a downtrend, and the short-term momentum indicators are supportive. No signs of divergences per se. I do not see any negative hidden divergences shaping up on the 75-minute time frame, which will confirm that yes, this downtrend is strong. So nothing of that as of now, which means that we should be a little careful. It's been with Halloween tomorrow, I would say it was seriously a Halloween kind of a week. It was like fairly volatile, stocks all over the place, with the drift being on the downside. So I think 11,600 has been taken care of. It's been tested. The index is trying to respect that level, but one should be open with the prospect of 400, 11,400 as well. The first sign of some amount of relief for the bulls or for the buyers comes above this zone, which is 700, 720, 730, 11,700 and above. A clear sign of polarity playing out here. We can see the lows becoming highs. When we start to see lows becoming highs, that's a sign of a nice downtrend. When we see highs becoming lows, that becomes a sign of a good uptrend. So this is a sign that this trend is, yes, indeed down and strong. And that's why I would say from a positional point of view, till 700 is not taken out, sustained, etc., etc., one should not be too bullish right now in the market. Individual stocks or sectors which are showing strength is fine, but from the Nifty perspective, let's stay a little careful. On the downside, 400, 450 stays. On the upside, 700 is the bare minimum. And further ahead, as we progress with the market, and of course we will discuss like we do every Friday, any further rally from here on will definitely face resistances from these kind of levels, the levels which actually have proven itself before. I would be looking carefully if the index creates some kind of a divergence close to that 400 mark, then yes, the possibility of a bounce back from 400 is higher. If it bounces back from here, 700 is the bare minimum. So the 75-minute time frame and the daily time frame charts actually gives us far more clarity in terms of the immediate movement, or anticipated movement of the market. Let's now quickly take a look at these sectors. Before we take a look at the sectors, let's just quickly discuss Bank Nifty as well. Also in the Bank Nifty, it's the 75-minute time frame which clearly suggests these two channels, out of which the red channel is redundant. It's not that important at this juncture. It's quite steep. It held the market for some time, but then it broke down. And this channel, actually, I can take it out. It's not that important. It's this blue channel right now, which is important. We have a channel breakdown like we have for Nifty. The index did manage to try and test the upper border of this channel, but failed. So for Bank Nifty also going forward, if it manages to bounce back, this channel is likely to provide a bit of resistance. The polarity which we saw in Nifty is not there in Bank Nifty right now. Neither is there any negative hidden divergences, which means that Bank Nifty doesn't seem to be, in a short-term perspective, doesn't seem to be as bearish as the Nifty. This corroborates with the fact that our RRG chart suggests that Bank Nifty and financial services were in the improving quadrant. We'll take a look at it. So at least from a short-term point of view, Bank Nifty doesn't seem to be as weak as we discussed the Nifty. This channel is needed on the intraday, not on the daily. On the daily time frame, if you look at the Bank Nifty, it's in a beautiful channel like this. Very nice resistance line. The support line is okay. I will not say the support line is very strong, but the resistance line is pretty strong. And we are at the midpoint of this channel over here. The index needs to rally further up to show some strength and support the index, which is the benchmark Nifty. But it's been quite wild. Banks like Kotak has shown some sharp movements. The others have weakened. Many of them are close to supports. We'll talk about a few of them later today. But I think Bank Nifty is something in which every time I say that is one sector of the market, one pocket, which has been oscillating on both the sides, supporting the index on the bounce backs as well as on the falls. And I think it has to come out of it. It has to actually start to react less than the index. And I think early signs of that is there. To understand this a little more, let's take a look at the RRG charts that we do every week. So a quick look at stockcharts.com showed some changes on their dashboard for which I was not able to access the RRG charts that we always do. But nevertheless, no problem. We can take a look at the individual sectors. If I sort them in terms of today's gains and losses, on my right hand side, I have the NSE sectors. You'd see some movement coming in from real estate. This is the daily chart of CNX Realty, and you can see uptrending behavior. I have the one standard deviation Bollinger Band as the river. I have the moving average, the slope acting as the trend. Of course, it gave a nice entry into the river, and now it's bouncing back. It was the biggest sectoral gainer today. The daily weekly combination, or if you allow me, I can actually split the screen. Left hand side, I can make it weekly. The right hand side, I can make it daily. Yeah. So the daily weekly combination, if you see here, suggests that it's in an uptrend. I will not have the river, so I can just right click and say apply indicator. Yeah. So real estate can be looked into going forward as a prospect. DLF definitely once that stands out. Energy is on the verge of a trend reversal. If you look at the weekly chart, it's on the verge of a trend reversal on the downside. It's still on an uptrend. It's close to support, so it should ideally give a bounce back, which corroborates here on my right-hand side chart, the daily chart. After bouncing back multiple times, this is mainly supported by Reliance Industries. It's early sign of a bounce back. This might take the index close to that 15,200 mark from where it can react further down. Not much upsides, but yes, from a short-term perspective, possible. Metal, if you look at the daily chart, it has entered the river, had gone oversold, and now giving us a bounce. We got that bounce today. Weekly charts, similar kind of a behavior. Outside the river, comes back to the support line and then bounces back. So metal seems to be all right. Media, no point. Mid cap is range bound. In fact, mid cap, you can clearly draw this and keep it drawn. This is the kind of breakout that the mid cap is preparing itself for. Today, primarily, auto was down. So if you see on the daily chart on my right hand side here, let me zoom out. Yes. So what it's doing is it's slipping below the river on the downside. So now it's actually going downtrend. A look at our RSI suggests that it had actually slipped. This slip had actually led into a downtrend, after which it never managed to take it up. So auto is weakening. Auto is not looking so good. The weekly charts are not that bad. The weekly charts had a beautiful run up, had consolidated. It's like typical sign of a distribution, and it's coming down. And I think auto will come down further. So keeping that in mind. Private sector banks is at suppose it should be a bounce back candidate. Private sector banks should perform if the market decides to bounce back. FMCG, no. Fresh breakdown, definite downtrend. Every swing high is being used to sell into it. And the weekly charts, which is on my left hand side now, is now slipping into a downtrend, very close to slipping into a downtrend. In this kind of a state where the supports are nearby, the index, the Nifty, FMCG will try a bounce back sometime later next week or next to next week. If that bounce back is not strong enough, I think the sector will underperform for a very long period of time. So we have to keep that in mind. We spoke about Bank Nifty. This is the financial services. So we should be keeping an eye on the financial services, the private sector banks next week. Typical case of an uptrending sector slipping inside the river, close to supports, oversold, and bounce back candidates. So keep in mind, so I can just mark it here. FMC financial services, I'll color it green, and private banks, I'll color it green. Auto, I'll color it red. This is the PSU bank. No, not good at all. The slip above the river did not sustain on the weekly as well as on the daily. Slips below the downtrend, not looking that strong. Pharma, disappointment. I had a bad trade in Cadila this week. It's again shaping up for a prospective trade. We'll talk about it. Lupin was one disappointment, kept on dragging itself down, and so was Sun Pharma. But if you look at the weekly charts, slightly larger time frame, you see that the index is now slipping into, is inside the river, is slipping into the oversold territories. ATR is shrinking. So eventually, should be a bounce back candidate. One important thing you should notice here is the path, something like this, that the index has made. So going forward, I think we should have a bounce back and then maybe the fall, if at all. Highly possible. We'll keep this in mind. On my right hand side, the daily chart has slipped outside the river and has started to create short-term divergences. This is a bounce back. Pharma is going to bounce back on Monday. High chances. Not giving it any color as of now, because on the weekly time frame it's bullish. So let's keep it bullish for a few days at least. IT, similar story you'll find here. Strong uptrending. We know how beautiful IT had performed. Slips inside the river, at the edge of the river, goes oversold, and now today we saw some movement, but it slipped from the day's high. Stocks like HCL Tech, TCS picked up beautifully towards the last 1 hour trade. Wipro, okay, slipped from the day's high. So it's trying. It's trying to give us a bounce back before it slips into a downtrend. Very unlikely it's going to slip into a long downtrend because the weekly charts are very strong. So IT, I think, would something you should put in a green mark there. Real estate, a green mark there. Metal, a green mark there. FMCG, a red mark there. Stay away from it. So that's how it is placed. Let's quickly take a look at the top 15 stocks which I've created here. In terms of the biggest gainers, it comes from the metals. Tata Steel, which bounced back from the river today. Sun Pharma got some movement. Reliance, this stock matters. We had a short-term divergences and it's playing out. TCS, I spoke about the last 1 hour, 75 minutes was a pretty nice bounce back. I think this stock should do good early next week. Not much, but little bit. State Bank of India, we saw the underperformance from the PSU index. It clearly reflects in the daily chart of State Bank of India. HCL Tech, I spoke about. Okay, before I just click on all of these, I'd like to show you Federal Bank. Keeping a close eye on Fed Bank next week. The weekly river has narrowed down, so it's a range contraction. The daily, you'll see from outside the river on the upside, it's gone outside the river on the downside. Average is still sloping up. Your 1334 will also be in an uptrend. Oversold, typical contra candidate. So should keep an eye on this stock. Infosys actually underperformed today compared to its other peers. So again, from the other side of the river to this side, it's a trend reversal kind of a situation. Before it reverses, what I'm trying to mean over here is before a stock which was in an uptrend, let's say starts to go downtrend, before it falls further down, it will always give us a bounce back to save itself, always. And you'll see this move sometime soon. If this move is big enough, strong enough, then the trend on the weekly continues, or else the next successive swing is generally more severe. So we'll keep this in mind for Infosys and the other IT stocks. Also, I'll just quickly talk about Maruti. Disappointment because the last 2 days was pretty sharp sell-off. I was keeping a close eye on this inside bar breakout, and after that it's just slipped back. Don't do anything with the auto because we saw that the auto was weak. I think I should mark it on the NS indices. I think I have already, yes. So don't do anything with auto right now. And if you do trade them on the long side, keep them very short term in nature and nothing much. So Halloween of a week it was for many stocks and sectoral also. Nifty, cautious, 11,400, 450 on the downside, and as long as 11,700 is not taken out on the upside, let's not go overboard with bullishness. Okay, so that's our take on the Nifty and the sectors. We'll quickly take a look at your trades, your questions, and the doubts.